She had always been quiet in class, sitting at the back, trying her best not to draw attention. Music was something she loved in private, a world she could escape to when life felt too loud or complicated. But in school, the music room was not her sanctuary. It was a place that made her nervous, especially with a teacher who seemed to take pleasure in pushing students beyond their comfort zones. The teacher was well known in the school for being strict. Some called her demanding, others called her unfair. She had a sharp voice and sharp eyes, the kind that seemed to notice every mistake, no matter how small. Her approach to teaching music was intense. She believed that public pressure could push a student to perform better. Unfortunately, that often meant embarrassing students in front of their peers, and the quiet girl had always been an easy target. That day, the music class was louder than usual. Students were talking and laughing, the sun streaming through the windows. She tried to focus on her notebook, sketching little music notes in the margins while pretending to read. But the teacher's gaze swept across the room, sharp and unyielding, until it landed on her. "You," the teacher said, pointing directly at her. The room went quiet, the chatter stopped. "Come to the piano. Now." Her stomach dropped. She froze for a moment, hoping it was a mistake, that the teacher would look away. But no, the teacher's expression left no room for negotiation. She was meant to play whether she liked it or not. Her classmates watched with interest, some smirking, some curious. The quiet girl could feel their eyes burning into her, a mix of expectation and amusement. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, to be anywhere but here. She wanted to tell the teacher she couldn't play, that she wasn't ready, that this was too much. But no words came out. Her voice felt trapped behind the lump in her throat. As she walked to the piano, she tried to steady her breathing. Her hands were sweaty, her fingers trembling. She remembered the last time she had played in front of anyone. It hadn't gone well. A few wrong notes, a nervous smile, and she had rushed off the piano as quickly as possible. The memory made her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She could already feel the teacher's judgment waiting for her, ready to point out every flaw. The piano was cold under her fingers. She sat down, adjusting the bench nervously. The keys seemed enormous, each one a small mountain she had to climb. She took a deep breath and tried to remember her lessons, the melodies she had practiced at home when no one was watching. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear and self-doubt. What if she messed up? What if everyone laughed? What if the teacher scolded her in front of the entire class? The teacher stood a few steps away, arms crossed, waiting. "Play something," she demanded. "Let's see what you've got." Her tone left no room for hesitation. The quiet girl's fingers hovered above the keys. She started with a simple scale, her hands shaking slightly. The notes were soft, unsure, but she kept going. She could feel the eyes of her classmates on her, some whispering, some leaning forward, eager to see a disaster unfold. The pressure was unbearable, and every nerve in her body seemed to scream for her to stop. But she didn't stop. She kept her fingers moving, focusing on the familiar patterns of the keys. Music had always been her refuge, and somehow, even under this heavy weight of attention, it was beginning to anchor her. She took another deep breath and tried to calm the storm inside her. The teacher watched silently, sharp eyes tracking every movement, every note. A few students snickered, whispering to each other. She could hear their amusement, and her heart sank further. She tried to ignore them, focusing only on the piano in front of her. She remembered the long hours she had spent practicing at home, the secret joy of discovering a melody and making it her own. That thought gave her a tiny spark of courage. She started a simple piece she knew well, her hands moving more confidently now. The notes were not perfect, but they were steady. A small part of her began to feel a strange sense of control. She realized that despite the fear, she could play. She could create music, and for a brief moment, it felt like she was back in her safe space, away from the teacher's sharp gaze and the curious eyes of her classmates. The teacher's expression didn't change. She still looked stern, still waited for a mistake. The quiet girl felt the tension in the room, the invisible weight of expectation pressing down on her. But with each note, she found herself a little braver. She focused on the music, on the melody flowing from her fingers, on the rhythm that seemed to steady her heartbeat. Her classmates were watching more closely now. Some were curious, some surprised by how she continued despite the obvious fear. The girl could feel their attention shifting, sensing the change in the room. The nervous energy was still there, but it was different now, tinged with anticipation rather than mockery. The teacher finally spoke, her voice cutting through the quiet. "Faster," she commanded. "Show me you can keep up." The quiet girl hesitated for a fraction of a second, then obeyed. She tried to follow the rhythm, her fingers moving faster, more deliberately. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she felt a strange determination rising. She wasn't just playing for herself anymore. She was playing to prove that she could. Not for the teacher, not for her classmates, but for herself. As she continued, she realized that something had shifted inside her. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. Her hands moved with a growing confidence, the music filling the room, drawing everyone's attention. The initial whispers of amusement were fading, replaced by an unexpected silence. The teacher's sharp eyes softened, if only slightly, as she watched the girl play with focus and determination. The quiet girl didn't notice the change at first. She was lost in the music, in the familiar patterns that had always comforted her. She had forgotten the fear, the embarrassment, the expectation. It was just her and the piano, and for the first time in that classroom, she felt completely herself. Finally, she reached the end of the piece. The last note lingered in the air, and for a moment, the room was completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke. The teacher's expression was unreadable, her usual sharpness replaced by a moment of surprise. The classmates stared at her, their previous amusement replaced by awe and disbelief. The quiet girl sat back, breathing heavily, trying to calm her racing heart. She had survived the challenge, but more importantly, she had done more than survive. She had played despite the fear, and she had played well. For a moment, she felt a flicker of pride, a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced in front of anyone before. The teacher finally spoke, her voice quieter than usual. "Well, that was unexpected." She didn't smile, but the sternness had lessened, if only slightly. The classmates began to murmur among themselves, their previous judgment replaced by a newfound respect. The quiet girl realized that the room had changed around her. What had started as a potential moment of humiliation had transformed into something entirely different. As the class ended and students filed out, some patting her on the back or offering quiet congratulations, she felt a small, growing confidence within herself. She had faced fear, and though the challenge had been terrifying, it had also revealed something powerful. She had a talent that could not be ignored, and for the first time, she felt that it was hers, fully and completely. Walking out of the music room, she held her head a little higher, feeling a strange mix of relief and pride. The teacher's gaze followed her for a moment, sharp but thoughtful. Perhaps the teacher had learned something too. Sometimes, pressure could reveal hidden strength, but it could also underestimate the quiet ones who had been quietly preparing all along. And so, the girl left the room, not just having survived an embarrassing challenge, but having taken the first step toward discovering her true potential. The girl left the piano that day with a mixture of relief and unease. Relief because she had survived the moment everyone feared would humiliate her. Unease because she knew that tomorrow, and perhaps every day after, her classmates would remember the performance. Some would admire her, but others might still whisper behind her back, waiting for another slip. Her mind raced as she walked through the quiet hallways, the sound of her shoes echoing off the walls, mingling with the hum of distant conversations. That evening, she sat at home, replaying the events of the day over and over. She could still feel the eyes of the class on her, the weight of expectation pressing down. Her hands trembled slightly even as she rested them on the edge of her desk. She thought about the teacher's expression, the brief, almost imperceptible softening of the stern gaze, and wondered what it meant. Was it approval, surprise, or something else entirely? She didn't know, and that uncertainty made her stomach knot again. Her mind wandered to the piano at home. She had a small keyboard in her room, one she had spent countless hours practicing on in secret. In the safety of her own space, she could lose herself in the music without fear of judgment. But today's experience had changed something. She could no longer see the piano merely as a private sanctuary. It had become a stage, even in her own imagination. The thought both excited and terrified her. Sleep was difficult that night. Her thoughts kept returning to the classroom, to the stares of her peers, to the sharp eyes of the teacher. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined herself back at the piano, trembling, uncertain. But then she also imagined the music flowing from her fingers, the surprise on the teacher's face, the stunned silence of the room. That memory brought a faint smile to her lips, a tiny flicker of pride that she had not felt before. The next day, she arrived at school early. The hallways were bustling with students, their voices a background hum she barely noticed. She made her way to the music room, each step heavier than the last. Her stomach twisted with nerves, but there was also a small, stubborn spark of determination. She wanted to face the day without letting fear control her. She wanted to prove to herself that she could handle more than she had thought. In class, the teacher was already at the front, preparing the music stands. Her gaze swept across the room, landing briefly on the girl with a sharp, assessing look. The girl felt her chest tighten, the familiar anxiety rising. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. She reminded herself that she had played yesterday, that she had survived the scrutiny of her classmates and the teacher. That memory was a lifeline, a quiet reassurance that she had more strength than she realized. The class began with the usual warm-up exercises. Students moved through scales and simple melodies, some with ease, some stumbling over the notes. She focused on her own hands, letting the familiar motions guide her. Her fingers knew the keys, knew where to go, and slowly, the tension in her muscles began to ease. But the thought that she might be called to perform again lingered in the back of her mind, an invisible shadow. And then the moment came. The teacher's gaze sharpened, scanning the room with intent. "I want someone to demonstrate this piece," she said. Her eyes locked on the girl, unyielding. A wave of fear washed over her. She had hoped she might be spared, that today she could remain unnoticed. But it was clear she was to play once more. She walked to the piano, each step measured, her heart hammering. She could feel the attention of the entire class focused on her, and for a moment, she imagined herself shrinking into nothingness. She could hear whispers, some teasing, some curious. Her palms were sweaty as she reached the piano, the keys cold under her fingers. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling hands. The teacher's voice broke through her thoughts. "Start," she commanded. The word was simple, but it carried weight, a subtle pressure that made her pulse race. She placed her fingers on the keys, the familiar arrangement both comforting and intimidating. She began with a few cautious notes, testing herself, gauging her own ability to stay composed. The first few notes were hesitant, her fingers slightly unsteady. But then she felt a spark of familiarity, a memory of the countless hours she had spent practicing alone. She let herself sink into the music, letting it guide her hands. Her heart still raced, but the anxiety began to ebb as she found her rhythm. The classroom seemed to fade away, leaving only her and the piano. Her classmates were watching intently, their earlier amusement replaced by quiet curiosity. Some leaned forward, trying to catch every note. The whispers ceased as the music took over the room, filling the space with sound and emotion. She felt a surprising calm settle over her, the fear transforming into focus, a quiet determination to see this through. The teacher's expression was unreadable, her eyes following every movement. There was a tension in the air, a silent challenge, but the girl felt herself rising to it. She realized that she was not just playing the piano. She was confronting her own fears, proving to herself that she could perform even under scrutiny. Each note was a small victory, each chord a step toward confidence. As she continued, she noticed the subtle shift in the room. The classmates who had been ready to laugh were now silent, their eyes wide with surprise. The music had captured their attention, transforming their expectations. Even the teacher's stern gaze softened slightly, an acknowledgement of the unexpected talent unfolding before her. Her fingers moved with increasing confidence, navigating the keys with a precision that surprised her even as she played. She felt a sense of control, a quiet power that came from mastering something she had once feared. The anxiety that had threatened to overwhelm her was now tempered by the knowledge that she could handle this challenge, that she could face the pressure and still create something beautiful. The piece reached its crescendo, the notes soaring and filling the room with a rich, resonant sound. She could feel the energy of her classmates, the shift in their perception. The quiet girl, once the target of potential embarrassment, was now commanding the attention of the entire class. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and relief, a deep satisfaction that she had not expected. When the final note lingered in the air, the room was silent for a moment, everyone processing what they had just witnessed. The teacher's eyes met hers, a fleeting look of respect and surprise. The classmates stared, some whispering to each other in awe. She sat back, breathing heavily, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She had faced the challenge again, and once more, she had risen above it. The class ended with murmurs of admiration and quiet congratulations from a few classmates. She packed her things slowly, savoring the feeling of accomplishment. The experience had been nerve-wracking, exhausting, and terrifying, but it had also shown her something invaluable about herself. She was capable of more than she had ever imagined, and the fear that had once dominated her was now tempered by a newfound sense of confidence. Walking down the hallway after class, she felt lighter, more assured. The whispers and glances from her peers no longer held the same power over her. She had faced the music, both literally and figuratively, and emerged stronger. The quiet girl who had once dreaded attention was beginning to discover a voice within herself, a voice that could express talent, courage, and resilience. As the days went on, she continued to practice in secret, honing her skills and gaining confidence. Each performance, each challenge, became an opportunity to prove to herself that she could rise above fear and expectation. The teacher, while still demanding and exacting, began to recognize her determination and skill, and the dynamic in the classroom shifted subtly. The girl's journey was just beginning, but she had already taken crucial steps toward embracing her talent and facing the world with quiet courage. The day arrived when the teacher decided to push the quiet girl further than ever before. This time, it was not just a scale or a simple melody. The teacher wanted her to perform a complete piece in front of the class. The girl felt a mix of dread and anticipation, her heart pounding as she approached the music room. She knew that the class would be watching closely, expecting either a stumble or something extraordinary. The pressure was immense, but deep down, a small flame of confidence still burned from previous experiences. As she entered the classroom, the chatter died down immediately. Her classmates turned their attention to her, some curious, some skeptical, and others quietly rooting for her. She tried to ignore their stares, focusing on the piano and the music she had practiced for hours in secret. The keys seemed larger than ever, each one representing a challenge she had to overcome. The teacher's gaze was sharp, piercing through her composure. "Play," she commanded, her voice leaving no room for hesitation. The girl sat down on the bench, her hands hovering over the keys, fingers trembling slightly. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Anxiety, fear, and a hint of excitement mixed together, creating a whirlwind she had to navigate carefully. The first notes were soft and uncertain, her fingers moving cautiously over the keys. She could feel the eyes of the class, the unspoken judgment, the anticipation of either success or failure. Her palms were sweaty, her heart racing, but she focused on the familiar patterns she had practiced countless times. Slowly, the hesitation began to fade as she allowed herself to sink into the music, letting it guide her fingers and calm her mind. Her classmates began to notice a subtle change. The girl who had seemed timid and nervous was now playing with a quiet determination. Each note was deliberate, each chord carefully placed. The whispers and snickers that had accompanied her earlier performances were gone, replaced by an attentive silence. Everyone was listening, captivated by the unexpected skill emerging before them. The teacher, known for her stern demeanor, seemed momentarily taken aback. She watched closely, her eyes scanning every movement, trying to anticipate a mistake. But the girl's hands moved with increasing confidence, her fingers dancing across the keys as if they had a mind of their own. The melody was flowing smoothly, the rhythm steady, and the music filled the room with a richness that surprised everyone. For the girl, it was as if the piano had become an extension of herself. The anxiety that had gripped her earlier moments was transforming into focus. She felt a sense of control she had never experienced before. Each note reinforced her confidence, each chord a testament to the hours she had spent practicing in secret. The fear of embarrassment was still there, lingering in the background, but it was no longer paralyzing. She was no longer just playing. She was performing, expressing herself through the music she loved. Her classmates were now fully absorbed. Eyes widened, mouths slightly open, and some leaned forward, unable to tear themselves away from the piano. The quiet girl had captured their attention, commanding respect through her talent rather than words. Even the teacher, who had intended to expose her weakness, could not look away. There was a brief flicker of surprise in her eyes, a recognition that the girl was more capable than she had imagined. As the piece progressed, the girl's confidence grew. She began to explore the dynamics of the music, adding subtle variations in tempo and expression. The melody became more expressive, more emotive, reflecting the depth of her feelings and her connection to the piano. The room seemed to vibrate with the energy of her performance, each note resonating in the hearts of those listening. The teacher's sternness softened slightly, though she did not openly acknowledge it. She could see the transformation happening before her eyes. The girl, once timid and quiet, now commanding the room with skill and emotion. The performance was not just about playing notes. It was about presence, expression, and the courage to face scrutiny. The girl was proving herself in a way that no one had expected, including herself. The classmates' reactions continued to evolve. Some who had doubted her now whispered words of admiration, while others simply stared in awe. The room was filled with a sense of wonder, the kind that comes when someone exceeds expectations in a way that feels genuine and extraordinary. The girl was no longer just a student. She was an artist, expressing herself through the music and captivating everyone around her. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, navigating the complex piece with surprising ease. The notes flowed seamlessly, each one a reflection of her dedication and passion. She had discovered a hidden strength, a talent that had remained dormant until this moment. The initial fear and doubt were still present, but they were now tempered by a growing sense of mastery. She realized that she could rise to challenges, that she could face scrutiny and still perform with integrity and skill. As the final notes approached, the intensity of the performance reached its peak. The music swelled, filling every corner of the classroom with its richness. The girl's heart raced, not with fear, but with exhilaration. She was fully immersed in the moment, fully present, and fully confident in her ability. The melody soared, carrying with it a sense of triumph and self-assurance that had been absent before. When the last note lingered and faded into silence, the room remained still. No one moved, no one spoke. The impact of the performance hung in the air, a powerful testament to the girl's talent and courage. The teacher's eyes met hers, a rare look of respect and acknowledgement. The classmates, who had once expected a faltering performance, were now silent in amazement, processing what they had just witnessed. For the girl, the silence was almost overwhelming. She sat back on the bench, hands still hovering over the keys, trying to steady her breathing. The performance had been a revelation, not just to her classmates and teacher, but to herself. She had confronted fear, faced scrutiny, and emerged not just unscathed, but stronger and more confident. The music had become a voice for her courage, a way to express strength that words could not capture. The teacher finally spoke, her voice softer than usual. "That was impressive. There was no reprimand, no harsh critique, only recognition of the skill and dedication the girl had displayed. The classmates began to murmur, some offering quiet praise, others simply absorbing the moment. The quiet girl, once the subject of potential embarrassment, had transformed the room with her talent. As the class ended and students filed out, the girl felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She had faced one of the most challenging moments of her life and had succeeded beyond her expectations. The performance had revealed not only her musical talent but also her inner strength and resilience. She had learned that fear could be confronted, that pressure could be transformed into focus, and that true talent could shine even in the most challenging circumstances. Walking down the hallway after class, she felt a sense of pride that was both quiet and profound. The whispers and glances from her classmates were no longer intimidating. They were a recognition of her achievement. She had faced a situation that could have humiliated her and had instead created something beautiful, something that commanded respect and admiration. The girl continued to practice and perform, her confidence growing with each experience. The teacher, while still strict, began to recognize her abilities and dedication. The dynamic in the classroom shifted subtly, as the girl's presence and talent could no longer be overlooked. She had discovered a new sense of self, a confidence that came not from avoiding fear, but from confronting it and excelling. Through this experience, the quiet girl learned valuable lessons about courage, perseverance, and the power of talent. She realized that moments of challenge and pressure could reveal hidden strengths, and that true confidence came from facing fears head-on. The piano, once a source of anxiety, had become a tool for self-expression, empowerment, and growth. In the days and weeks that followed, she continued to explore her musical abilities, building on the foundation of confidence and skill she had discovered. Each note she played was a reminder of what she could achieve, each performance an opportunity to challenge herself further. The experience had transformed her, not just as a musician, but as a person, instilling a sense of resilience, determination, and self-belief that would guide her for years to come. The classroom was quiet as the girl's performance reached its peak. The music poured from the piano with a clarity and emotion that seemed to fill every corner of the room. Her classmates were frozen, eyes wide, mouths slightly open, caught in the unexpected beauty of her playing. The usual chatter, the whispers, the fidgeting, all of it had disappeared. For a moment, it was as if the entire world had shrunk to the space between her fingers and the keys. The girl's heart pounded, but it was not fear this time. It was a steady, focused rhythm, a pulse that matched the music she created. Each note flowed naturally, guided by hours of private practice, by the deep love she had for the melodies she played. She could feel the energy in the room, the attention of everyone around her, but instead of pressure, it became a kind of support, an invisible current that carried her through the performance. Her classmates were transfixed. Some had never heard anything like it, the complexity and emotion far beyond what they had expected from someone so quiet. Their previous assumptions about her had vanished in an instant, replaced by awe. Even those who had whispered and snickered earlier could not deny the sheer talent unfolding before them. The girl's music spoke where words could not, reaching through the walls of fear and expectation, touching something deep within each listener. The teacher, who had intended to expose weakness, now watched in a mixture of surprise and admiration. Her eyes, usually sharp and critical, softened slightly. She could see the girl's fingers moving with precision and confidence, the notes resonating with feeling and control. The classroom, once a place of judgment, had transformed into a space of pure attention and appreciation. The teacher realized that the girl had exceeded all expectations, that her talent could not be diminished by the usual methods of intimidation. The girl's body moved with the music, swaying slightly as her fingers danced across the keys. She was aware of the faces in the room, of the students leaning forward, of the teacher watching intently, but she no longer felt the crushing weight of anxiety. The music was her guide, her companion, her voice. In that moment, she was entirely herself, unafraid and unapologetic. Every chord, every melody carried a story, a piece of her inner world that had remained hidden until now. The classroom was silent, the only sound the piano echoing with clarity and depth. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, as if the walls themselves recognized the significance of the moment. The girl had become a conduit for something larger than herself, a bridge between fear and expression, uncertainty and confidence. Some students shifted in their seats, unable to believe the skill and emotion they were witnessing. They had expected hesitation, mistakes, perhaps even a nervous retreat. Instead, they found grace, precision, and an unexpected depth. The quiet girl, who had seemed so timid in the past, now commanded the room without a word. Her music spoke volumes, leaving a mark on everyone who listened. The teacher's internal thoughts were a mix of surprise and reflection. She had seen many students perform, many falter, many shine in small ways. But rarely had she encountered someone who could transform fear into artistry so completely. The girl's performance challenged assumptions, not only of her classmates but of the teacher herself. She had intended to embarrass, to expose weakness, but the outcome had been entirely different. The girl's talent was undeniable, her courage evident in every note. As the music continued, the girl's confidence grew. She explored dynamics, adding subtle nuances that enhanced the emotion of the piece. She felt a connection with the piano, with the melodies, with the audience. Each note reinforced her self-assurance, each chord a testament to her dedication and perseverance. The fear that had once dominated her thoughts was now a distant echo, replaced by a sense of empowerment and accomplishment. The classmates' reactions were varied but unanimous in their awe. Some whispered to each other, unable to contain their admiration. Others simply watched, transfixed, as if the music had cast a spell over them. The girl had become the center of attention, not through arrogance or demand, but through the purity of her performance. She had demonstrated that true talent could shine even in the face of doubt and expectation. The teacher finally broke the silence, her voice calm but carrying weight. That was remarkable. There was no criticism, no suggestion of improvement, only recognition. The students absorbed the words, nodding subtly, some smiling in quiet appreciation. The girl, still focused on the piano, felt a sense of validation, not from praise, but from the acknowledgement of her abilities and the impact of her performance. As the final notes lingered and faded, the room remained silent for a heartbeat longer. Then, slowly, a wave of applause and murmurs began, growing in intensity as the classmates expressed their admiration. The girl sat back, breathing heavily, her hands resting lightly on the keys. She had completed the piece, faced the audience, and left them in awe. The silence had been replaced by recognition, the tension transformed into appreciation. She felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. Relief that she had survived the performance, exhilaration that she had discovered a new dimension of her own capabilities. The experience had revealed not just her musical talent, but her resilience, her ability to confront fear, and her capacity to rise above expectation. She had turned a potential moment of embarrassment into a triumph of skill and expression. The teacher's eyes lingered on her, a rare softness in their gaze. There was no need for harsh words or criticism. The performance had spoken for itself. The girl had proven that talent, when combined with courage, could overcome fear and transform perception. The classroom, once a place of judgment and scrutiny, had become a space of recognition and admiration. The classmates continued to murmur among themselves as the girl gathered her things. Some offered quiet congratulations, others simply nodded, still processing what they had witnessed. The impact of the performance extended beyond the music itself. It had altered the way the girl was seen, the way she saw herself, and the dynamic of the classroom. Respect had replaced doubt, and admiration had replaced skepticism. Walking out of the classroom, the girl felt a sense of quiet pride. The journey had been challenging, filled with fear and uncertainty, but it had also been transformative. She had discovered a strength within herself that she had not known existed, a talent that could command attention and inspire others. The experience had taught her that courage and skill could coexist, that fear could be a catalyst for growth rather than a barrier. In the days that followed, the memory of the performance lingered in the classroom. classmates who had once doubted her now approached with curiosity and respect. The teacher, while still strict, began to recognize her dedication and talent, adjusting her approach accordingly. The quiet girl, who had once been overshadowed by fear, now moved with a newfound confidence. Her presence felt in subtle but powerful ways. The silence and awe of that performance remained a defining moment. It was a turning point, a moment that revealed the depth of her abilities and the strength of her character. The experience had not only changed how others saw her, but also how she saw herself. She had faced the pressure, embraced the challenge, and emerged stronger, her talent undeniable and her confidence growing with each passing day. Through this experience, the girl learned a lesson that would stay with her for a lifetime. True courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Talent, when nurtured and expressed with authenticity, could transform perception and inspire those around you. The classroom, once a place of potential humiliation, had become a stage for revelation and growth. The girl had not only survived the challenge but had turned it into an opportunity for recognition, respect, and self-discovery. The days following her performance were filled with subtle but meaningful changes. The quiet girl noticed it first in the way her classmates looked at her. There was less doubt, less whispering behind her back, and more curiosity, more respect. Some even asked her questions about the piece she had played, seeking guidance or simply trying to understand how someone so shy could produce such beautiful music. She was still herself, quiet and introspective, but now there was a new layer of confidence beneath the surface, a sense of self-assurance that came from having faced her fears and succeeded. In the classroom, the teacher's demeanor shifted as well. Though still strict and demanding, there was a newfound recognition of the girl's abilities. The teacher began to challenge her in different ways, offering more complex pieces and encouraging her to take on solo performances in a supportive manner rather than with intimidation. The girl felt a sense of validation, not from praise alone, but from the teacher's subtle acknowledgement of her talent and dedication. It was as if the challenges of the past had laid the foundation for growth, both as a musician and as a person. At home, the girl continued to practice diligently. Her small keyboard in her room became a place of exploration and expression, a space where she could experiment with new melodies and techniques without the pressure of an audience. Each practice session strengthened her skill and deepened her love for music. She discovered nuances in the pieces she had once found difficult, learning to convey emotion through every note. The piano, once a source of anxiety in the classroom, had become a trusted companion, a tool through which she could articulate thoughts and feelings that words could not capture. The experiences in the classroom had also changed how she approached other challenges in her life. The confidence she had gained from performing in front of her peers spilled over into other areas. She began to participate more actively in class discussions, raise her hand with questions, and express her opinions. It was not a dramatic transformation, but a subtle, steady growth that reflected the inner strength she had discovered through music. She learned that facing fear directly, even in small steps, could lead to a profound sense of empowerment. Her classmates, once uncertain about her abilities, now saw her in a new light. Some sought her advice for their own music assignments, while others simply admired her dedication and talent from a distance. The girl, in turn, approached these interactions with humility and kindness. She offered guidance when asked, but she never sought attention or praise. Her focus remained on the music and on personal growth, understanding that true skill and confidence were demonstrated through consistent effort rather than seeking validation from others. One day, the teacher announced a small recital for the music class, an opportunity for students to showcase their progress. The quiet girl felt a familiar mix of excitement and nerves, but she also recognized the difference in how she approached this challenge compared to previous experiences. The fear was still present, but it was tempered by the knowledge that she had the ability to rise to the occasion. She chose a piece that was challenging yet expressive, one that allowed her to convey emotion and skill simultaneously. During the recital, she performed with a sense of calm and focus that surprised even her. Her fingers moved gracefully over the keys, producing a melody that was both precise and full of feeling. The classmates who had once watched her with skepticism were now attentive and engaged, their eyes reflecting admiration and respect. The teacher observed closely, nodding subtly in approval, acknowledging the growth and dedication she had cultivated over time. The performance concluded with a moment of silence, a brief pause in which the audience absorbed the music and the effort behind it. Then, a wave of applause filled the room, genuine and enthusiastic. The girl felt a rush of pride and accomplishment, not from the applause itself, but from the recognition of the journey she had undertaken. She had faced fear, overcome challenges, and transformed what had once been a source of anxiety into an expression of talent and confidence. In the weeks and months that followed, the girl continued to grow as a musician and as a person. She took on new pieces, experimented with composition, and occasionally performed for small audiences outside of class. Each experience built on the last, reinforcing the lessons she had learned about courage, perseverance, and self-expression. She realized that her talent was not simply about technical skill, but about the ability to convey emotion, connect with others, and remain steadfast in the face of challenges. The teacher, who had once attempted to embarrass her, became a mentor in a more genuine sense. The strictness remained, but it was now balanced with encouragement and recognition of effort. The girl appreciated the guidance and structure, understanding that it was meant to push her to her full potential. She also recognized the importance of self-belief, of trusting her own abilities even when external pressures seemed overwhelming. Her classmates continued to support and respect her, and she learned the value of humility in success. She celebrated her achievements quietly, finding satisfaction in personal growth and in the joy of creating music. She had learned that talent, when nurtured with dedication and courage, could flourish even under pressure, and that true confidence came from within rather than from external validation. Beyond music, the lessons she learned in the classroom influenced her broader perspective on life. She understood that fear was not something to be avoided, but something to be confronted and understood. Challenges were opportunities to discover hidden strengths, and perseverance was a key to unlocking potential. The experience had instilled a resilience that would serve her well in many areas, from academics to personal relationships and future endeavors. In quiet moments, she reflected on the journey that had begun with an embarrassing challenge. What had seemed like a potential humiliation had instead become a turning point, revealing her talent, courage, and inner strength. She realized that sometimes, the moments that test us the most can also reveal who we truly are. The piano, once a source of anxiety, had become a symbol of her growth, a constant reminder of what could be achieved through dedication and self-belief. As she moved forward, the girl continued to embrace opportunities for growth, remaining humble yet confident in her abilities. She understood that success was not defined by the absence of fear, but by the courage to act despite it. Her experiences in the classroom had taught her that talent alone was not enough. It required practice, determination, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. Ultimately, the quiet girl who had once dreaded attention had discovered a voice through her music. She had learned that skill, courage, and expression could transform fear into strength, and that moments of challenge could become defining points in her life. The teacher's attempt to embarrass her had unintentionally set her on a path of self-discovery and growth, leaving a lasting impact on both her own life and on those who witnessed her talent. The lessons she had learned extended beyond music. She understood the importance of perseverance, the power of self-expression, and the value of confidence built from experience rather than seeking approval. Her journey was a testament to the potential within everyone, waiting to be realized when faced with challenges and nurtured with dedication. The quiet girl had transformed into a confident, capable young musician, her talent and courage leaving a lasting impression on all who knew her. Through her journey, she learned that fear and challenge are not obstacles to be avoided, but opportunities for growth. The music had been the catalyst for change, the vehicle through which she discovered resilience, determination, and self-belief. Her performances became more than just demonstrations of skill. They became expressions of identity, courage, and inner strength. The experience had shown her that true talent shines brightest when paired with confidence and the willingness to face the unknown. In the end, The girl's journey was one of transformation. From a shy, quiet student who feared embarrassment, she became a confident musician capable of inspiring others with her talent and dedication. The classroom, once a place of fear, had become a space of growth and discovery. The teacher's challenge, meant to provoke discomfort, had instead revealed her hidden potential, shaping her into a resilient, self-assured individual who understood the value of courage, perseverance, and the power of music.